for this opportunity to talk about the scientific impact of Laudato Si. So as I'll show you by some examples, it's already having a profound impact on our thinking about how to solve the climate change problem. Let me just give you a brief introduction. The Earth goes through cold and warm period, and I'm showing you the graph for the last 50,000 years. Over the last at least 6,000 years, we are in a warm epoch. It's called Holocene. And people point this out to point that the Earth's climate is already changing. Why should we worry about this small change? The reason scientists like me are very worried about this warming is that we were already in a warm epoch, stable climate, and now we are pushing it beyond the scale. And if this continues over the next several decades, we would be pushing the climate system to a scale we have not seen, at least in the last 50 to 100,000 years. And how large is that climate change in the future? We are expecting the system to go beyond 1.5 degrees warming in 15 years. This is from the pre-industrial. The planet is already warmer by 1 degree. In less than 35 years, we are going to go past 2-degree warming, and so on and so forth. So the question is, how is that climate going to look in just 15 to 30 years? The reason we can't say clearly how large or how catastrophic that's going to be is we are seeing massive feedbacks. I'm showing you our data on the Arctic sea ice from 1980 to 2012, less than 22 years. You see a big gaping hole showing up in the bottom one. So as the sea ice melts, it lets the sunlight go to the darker ocean, and we are seeing enormous heating of the ocean. It is so large that it's equivalent to 250 billion tons of carbon dioxide. The heating of that massive amount is already occurring, and I'm just giving you one example. There are several such feedbacks happening, and we don't know how deep that cliff is when we pass 2 degrees. So it's in this context we should judge the Paris Agreement and the role religion can play. And influenced tremendously by my participation in this Pontifical Academy the last 10 years, I see an alliance between science, policy, and religion forming to protect the environment. In a sense, this alliance is being forged by the Church with the 2 Pontifical Academies. It's my personal hope, and now I must say many scientists are coming around to this view. This alliance will play a major, if not a dominant role, in solving the climate change problem. Of course, we need Paris Agreement and others, but what we lack is public support for the sort of massive actions we need to stop this warming. So I said it was my experience at the Academy. I think the most singular meeting I have seen in my 10 years is this meeting organized by this Academy of Science with the top glaciologists and physicists and chemists in the world. In our concluding statement, if you look at the last sentence, if we want justice and peace, we must protect the habitat that sustains us. The believers amongst us ask God to grant us this wish. I have never seen such a statement in a scientific document. So in that sense, it just changed my view. Moving on, to me as a scientist, the chapter which really made me fall off my chair is this chapter on integral ecology. It talks about that we have to understand the interaction between natural systems and social systems. By the way, none of our models have this interaction. This December, a union of 50,000 scientists meeting in San Francisco, where we're going to talk about how do we put the social system in our models. So that's a tremendous impact. And just to quote there, the yellow one is straight quotation from the Laudato Si, the cry of the earth should be heard with the cry of the poor. To me, if I need to pick one phrase from the Laudato Si, it would be that. Let me give you an example of what's. Can I have the next one? It's not, yeah. So, if you look at the disparity which the Laudato Si talks about, 1 billion of us, we live as if there is unlimited access to fossil fuels. We contribute about 60% to the climate pollution. Compare that with the poorest 3 billion who lack access to modern fuels, even for cooking. Their contribution to climate pollution is about 6% or less. But we all know when this current, what we are watching, experiencing in terms of droughts, floods, and heat waves, intensifies, and it will, these 3 billion have no way to cope with it. So they're sort of innocent bystanders to the wealthy 1 billion's unsustainable consumption. So after that Glacier meeting, we held a meeting jointly between the Academy of Science and Academy of Social Sciences. There were many Nobel laureates, many here attend that meeting. And they all tell me that it's the most historic meeting they have attended. And see the conclusion we came to. Drive for growth to profits and GDP have encouraged behavior that is at odds with pursuit of the common good. And then we conclude sustainable relationship with nature requires change in attitude towards nature and towards each other. We can't leave the 3 billion saying they're just living in villages, let's keep going. That's what we implied there. And contrast that with what the encyclical, it brilliantly in chapter 3 identifies the fundamental problem. It talks about technology and economy. There is a nexus between them. And the technology is such that it assumes infinite natural resources, infinite fossil fuels, infinite minerals, infinite everything. And that economy is coupled to the growth, and the wealth it creates is for only a few. This is what Laudato Si says. So thank you. It then suggests a solution. That's captured in the next one. It says we need a paradigm shift to the stewardship paradigm. We become good stewards of the planet. In technology, it recommends a circular model that recycled, nothing is thrown away. And the economy, it puts forth work, a job for everyone. It's the primary goal. Then it asks for, in terms of wealth, we include not only GDP, but natural resources and social capital. In our academy meeting in 2014, our economists, Partha Dasgupta and Jeff Sachs and others, said when we look at wealth, we have to include natural capital. And the Laudato Si adds the social capital to that. This, I think, would form a tremendous scientific paradigm to understand the interaction between humanity and nature. And this was a quotation from an article Chancellor Sarando and I wrote. I'm showing these to indicate to you how science is now embracing religion to solve this climate change problem. They invited us to write this. So what we say there is that we need to bring in other religions and other moral and political leaders. And Laudato Si already calls for that. In its preface, it brilliantly says, this encyclical is for believers and non-believers alike. So it's not singling out one community. So I want to conclude, so this is about COP22, my personal proposal, but consistent with what we have heard already, we focus on the intra-generational equity, the 3 billion we have left behind. And so there are 2 steps we can do. We need to bring immediate relief to climate change. The Paris Agreement focuses excellently on carbon dioxide. But if we mitigate emissions of what I call super pollutants, these are 1,000 to 2,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide, we have an opportunity to cut the projected warming in the next few decades by about 50%. Just help the poor some time to cope with it. And I'm pleased to say last week our California Governor, Jerry Brown, already passed a law into bill. The second is we have got to provide clean energy access to the bottom 3 billion. Many talk about this, but it's still in the talking stage. And we have costed this through working with YASA. It comes to about $80 per person amongst the top 1 billion. So it's not a huge amount we need. And it will also cut down their emissions. And it will save at the minimum 2 million lives per year lost to all kinds of air pollution. I hope through the church's work, we can push this agenda forward and get that support. As far as providing them clean energy access, the technology is there. It's nothing we have to invent, something new. So let me conclude with this need for the alliance between science, policy, and religion. Laudato Si already says a new dialogue that includes everyone. And it says the solution we all know, just not technological solution. We need a societal transformation. Just to give an indication how it has already impacted scientific thinking, last year, 6 months after Laudato Si, I led a team of 50 professors from the University of California, and we published 10 solutions. And if you see our solution number 2 and 3, it says societal transformation is fundamental. That's what is in Laudato Si. That was what in series of meetings held at the Academy. The second is what I call cradle to grave education to be good stewards of the planet. And I think, again, in this Academy last year, academician Pierre Lénard organized a terrific meeting on education of K to 12. The third is my personal reason why I think this alliance is key to solving the climate problem. We need massive public support to take drastic actions. To the extent climate change has become a huge moral, ethical issue because of this impact on 3 billion who had very little to do with this, and its impact on generations yet to be born. So it's much easier to discuss this moral and ethical issues in a religious setting. I also want to mention one thing my colleague Jack Miles has said. We need to reimagine the role of religion in the service of human species. Humanity, but human species in the service of life itself. This also was clearly prescribed in Laudato Si. Thank you very much, Chairman.